Hello everybody and welcome to Dorm Improvement. I'm your host Joe Kubicki, and alongside me today is my co-host Matt Copleen. Matt, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Joe. How about yourself?
I'm doing great. Are you ready to get started with today's project?
Yeah, Joe, let's get started. What are we doing today?
Alright, so we recently showed you the build of this bed loft shelf here. However, we did not have time in that episode to show you how to finish the project. So today we are going to show you how to do the finishing work on this project, as well as lay out the options for basic refinishing of furniture. Here are the materials you will need for any basic refinishing project. First is a putty knife, paint stripper, a metal tray, several paint brushes, plastic tarps, rags, sandpaper, steel wool, paint, stain, or oil, and other necessary finishes you might need like handles or hardware. Now the first step in most refinishing jobs is stripping off the old finish. For that you use paint stripper, and we will show you how it works on this scrap piece of wood. And so the stripper that we are using for this project is one that is rated for indoor use. It's got not a lot of fumes. It actually smells like citrus, but it's got a low fumes, and that's the only way that we can do it inside. If we were using any other kind of paint stripper, we would have to go outside because the fumes in most cases are just too much, and you need a really well ventilated area. The other important thing is going to be to wear chemical resistant gloves, and you can just buy a pack of 6 at the hardware store, really cheap. And they just protect your hands so you don't get any burns from this stuff. And we want to lay it on pretty thick. And the other thing is important is we want to use a brush that actually has bristles on it like this one here. We don't want to use those really cheap foam brushes because the stripper will actually eat through the material and degrade the brush. Here's what we did earlier. This is an area we did earlier. And you're going to go ahead and then take a putty knife and just go ahead and scrape the finish off. And the longer you let it sit, the longer it works. You can leave this stuff sit for up to 24 hours. We let it sit for about 30 minutes, which is the minimum time. So had we let it sit a little bit longer, it would have taken more of the finish off. But you can do this as many times as you need to.
Now for our loft shelf, we did not have any old finish on this. It is just bare wood. Our first step is going to be sanding this down. But Joe, I have to ask, what is all this stuff in here? We didn't have it last week.
Well, so we had a little bit of a gap here at the top and here on the sides. And so we just added some wood filler to fill the gaps here. And this is paintable and stainable. And you use it a lot of times when working with trim or projects like this. And the reason we had that gap is because these boards here, it's really cheap pine, so they're not perfectly straight, so they offset a little bit here. So we added some of that to make the top nice and clean. And so now we have to go ahead and sand this here to get it nice and flat. And you always want to go with the grain when sanding.
Joe, I noticed you are using just some regular sandpaper. Why are you not using an electric one?
Well, we have an electric one here, and we can use it on certain parts of this. When you get into more detailed work on any piece of furniture, especially right in here for this project, you want to use just regular sandpaper. With this product, it actually says to use regular sandpaper because you don't want to knock large chunks of it out of the joints. So we're going to go ahead and use regular sandpaper for this part. But if we were sanding something flatter, like our ends here, or the bottom, or even the flat panel here, we could use the electric sander, but when you get into details, it's a little bit harder. So for this project, we are going to use right around an 80 grit. So this is pretty common for something, for a basic sand, and that's what we're going to use for this project. And so now, the next step to get the rest of the imperfections off, and we'll run this along the whole thing, is going to be to use steel wool. but this works really well, especially for getting in these details right in here, because this is a lot more flexible. And this comes in varying degrees of harshness as well. We're using a pretty fine grit. I only like to do this once right at the end. So this is a pretty fine grit steel wool. You can judge it by the package. It will tell you right on the package what grit it is. And this is really just to clean up your work and to make sure everything is nice and smooth. Now we need to decide on a finish for this project, and our major options include paint, stain, and other oils. Now, when painting bare wood, it is always good to put a coat of primer on before putting the paint on. You can choose from a wide variety of colors when working with paint, and picking colors like white, gray, or even other bright colors give the project a modern look. And I tend to like to go with the grain as well. And we didn't put primer on it, but this will just give you an example. Paint tends to like to soak into the wood a lot, so that's why we would use primer. But when you use paint, you get a lot cleaner of a finish, and it hides a lot of other imperfections. So if you've got like a little hole, it would probably even cover that up, and it just makes it look very clean. The other most common option is going to be a stain, and stains come in a wide variety of colors as well. You can even get tinted stains that are bright colors, but the most common stains are generally wood, natural wood colors. So you put it on, and it's good to do a decent sized area. And then you go ahead and take a rag, actually a clean rag, and you can wipe it off a little bit. And so we didn't let this soak in enough, but you can let it sit and wipe it off a little bit, and then you'll get the color in there. And you can, just like paint, you can put multiple coats on this. And what's the biggest benefit about this is you can still see the wood grain. Now, the heavier you put it on, the less you see the wood grain. And like I said, you can do multiple coats to get a darker color or a more rich color if that's what you're looking for. But this is another really great option.
For this project, the best option I believe for us right now, Joe, is to use some primer. So to start with, I'm going to use a damp rag again, and just wipe down the front of the wood with it. And don't make sure not to get it too wet. That way the primer can soak in. But make sure to go nice and slow and get everything.
So even though this doesn't look very complete, that is a decent first coat of primer. You want to let that sink in. We'll hit a couple of the high spots right here just to knock those down so we don't get any blobs. Maybe run over that again. But that's a pretty good first coat of primer. It will make it look nice and clean, and then you'll let this dry. Probably about 4 hours is what I think is recommended on this. And then you can go ahead and put a second coat on. So then you would go ahead and put paint on, and then follow the directions on the paint. And usually it's about, it depends on what kind of paint you get. It's about 6 to 8 hours, maybe more, to make sure it's dry all the way to put the second coat on there.
Slow and steady wins the race, Joe. Slow and steady.
And then your other option, the final option with any one of these projects, so once you've put your paint, stain, however you want to finish your project, what you can do is you can put what's called a clear coat on, and it's either a spray or it's even a brush on as well. We'd like to thank you for joining us for this episode of Dorm Improvement, and hope you've had fun learning how to make this project. Be sure to check out dormimprovement.com for more information on upcoming projects and future episodes. Until next time, I'm Joe Kubicki.
And I'm Matt Kapleen.
And this is Dorm Improvement.